Well, it's certainly my pleasure to be here today, so I would like to start by giving you, and I would like you to join in, give yourselves all a round of applause. You know, as a J1, as Mr. Crowley just stated, I did deploy. It was a 6-month deployment. I think the best assignment, you know, everyone says their last assignment was the best assignment. Well, I'm one of those too. But I had the opportunity to serve as the G1 for almost 3 years before applying and being selected as a J1. And as Mr. Crowley said earlier, I think I'm the last man standing. I don't know if that's good or bad on the J staff or not, but everybody's turning over this summer. But it is certainly my pleasure to be here. I work for you. I work for my staff, and I work for you, and I work for all those service members and families out there that are doing it every single day on behalf of this country. So again, we are here for you this week. I'm also a firm believer that we don't lose out or miss out on any opportunity to get this big of a group together, to network, to partner, to further push along all the programs that we are continuing to refine and develop to build that network capacity or partnership capacity in order to fill the gaps in programs and systems, etc., so that we can even better support the service members and families out there. So if we go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, on today's agenda, there's a few things I'd like to cover. What to expect this week, where we headed in strategic planning within the J1 to include the A1 and the G1 staff, metrics and statistics, building partner capacity, so the briefing this morning was spot on, and then joining community forces, which some of you have already participated on some of the webinars. Next slide. I had help with the slides. All right, so the seminar format. Again, I'm a firm believer that you never lose out on an opportunity, especially when you bring this size of a group together, both in networking, sharing best practices, networking between each other, sharing those community partner capacity building ideas, where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed. And so what I asked my group to do is to develop some slides, and each of the groups here this week will be given a set of slides for you to fill in, which will be described at your initial meeting this afternoon or later this morning, about what you're going to do to build partner capacity. How are we going to build a strategic communication plan in order to communicate what's out there? I had an opportunity to meet with the SFPDs yesterday. We've got a lot of turnover. If I could see raise your hand if you've been in your job 6 months or less. Raise your hand. Raise it high. There's a lot of folks out here, a lot of shy people not raising their hand. But it happens all the time. You know, so you think that you've been working really, really hard, and you have, right, about reaching out to your community throughout your own organization, etc., and there's turnover. So we're starting over every single day, trying to communicate our message on how to support service members and families. It is what it is, right? But it can get frustrating, but you guys are doing an outstanding job. Next slide. So one of the first things that I wanted to do is, Mr. Crowley stated, I previously served as a G1 for almost 3 years. I fully support and believe in strategic planning. The G1 community did a fantastic job in strategic planning, building action plans, building metrics, measuring how successful or not successful that we're doing at each piece of, in the G1's case, manning ready units. Building readiness. The Army National Guard today has the highest medical readiness rating it's ever had in the history of the Army National Guard, and it's because of all of you that have gotten that done. You build readiness in our service members and our families each and every day, and what you do is so important to, again, those two communities and also their children. So you build readiness as well throughout our organization. So again, served as a G1 and then as the J1. we had Lieutenant Colonel Lanuzzo, Lieutenant Colonel Weigel, Mr. Frank Yoakum, and Colonel Bess from the great state of Virginia, the former J1. Yay! Because we wanted to make sure that we had a state perspective in our strategic planning process, right? Because we're here to serve you. It was fantastic. We had 2 meetings. We had a meeting in February and then a meeting in March. And my thought is throw everything in a bucket. Let's start over. Everything's negotiable. And I think that you're going to find that in some of the discussions that you have this week, that nothing is written in stone. You know, so one of the things, and I know that everybody in here is really, really proud of everything that you've accomplished so far, and that you're very proud of the work that you're doing. But every once in a while, you got to take a pause, do some reflection, figure out where you've been, where you are, and then where you're headed. Right? Because to steer this ship over the last 10 years, sometimes you'll have folks come up and they'll say, why haven't we done this yet? Why haven't we quite figured this out? It takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, and a lot of effort to steer this ship in the direction in which we're headed. Okay? So, you know, don't beat yourself up. You guys are doing a fabulous job supporting our service members, families, and children. And we just need to continue now to take a pause, reflect, regroup, and then move forward to fill in some more of those gaps that we need to fill in on their behalf. And so we again held 2 strategic meetings. Then we sat down, Mr. Crowley and myself, and Robin Zweiban from the J8 community, sat down with each program manager and talked about where were you, where are you, and where are you headed. And I'll give this example. She may regret it, but I'll use this example anyways. Yellow ribbon, a lot of passion, right? There's a few groups in here that already do networking every single day. Yellow ribbon folks, family folks, child and youth, TAA. It's just the nature of the beast. Everybody in here already does capacity building. So I said to Miss Lottie, yellow ribbon. First of all, it's funded by OCO, which is an issue, right? We'll have to resolve here in the future. I've attended a few yellow ribbon events myself, and one of my concerns was, and some of the feedback we got was, if you're a multiple deployer and you're going and you're attending the same thing every time, are we truly addressing their needs? So we had that hard discussion about, if I'm a multiple deployer, who here uses the unit risk inventory report and the reintegration risk inventory report? If you don't know what I just said, you really need to reach out to your counter-drug folks, because they're the ones who give those surveys, and they're fabulous, right? Because you're always I'm a data person, and we'll get to the data slides here in a few minutes. But it helps shape what it is that you're doing and where the gaps are. So in the URI and the RURI, right, you have self-reported alcohol usage. As a G1, I tried to get after how many people do we have out there with alcohol issues, right? Unless you have somebody who comes to drill drunk and fails the DAT test, you're not going to see it. So how do we get people to get self-help? So one of the things that she and I talked about was, you know, so what are some of the issues for those multiple deployers? Strong bonds. Why do we need to fund strong bonds separately? Why isn't that the 60-day event a yellow ribbon? I'll just throw it out there. What about domestic violence? What about substance abuse? You know, so what I'm asking you to do this week is take a pause, throw everything in a bucket, no matter which group you're with, and then let's describe where we're headed. There's no parameters. Okay, you don't have to do what you always did because that's what you did. All right, so again, all parameters off, let's move forward. It's that moving in the ship, taking that pause, regrouping as a community, and moving forward. Next slide. So here's what we came up with for the J1 strategic vision and mission. It was a lot of great discussion. You know, in the G1 and A1 community, it's pretty easy, right? What do? Man, equip, train. Right? So we had a lot of discussion on what do we do as the J1. One of my first points to the group was, at National Guard Bureau, the J1 at large should spend at least 75 to 80% of their time what I call looking up, building network partnership capacity. Not program execution. We gave most of the programs back to the services for service execution. They're service programs. Okay? So what are we here for? We're here to build partner capacity, to reach out to the White House, Joint Chiefs of Staff, OSD, Military Child Education Coalition, all those nonprofits, etc., to help you fill in those gaps. Okay, so thank you. Advocate. That's what we do. That's what the J1 does on behalf of the Army and the Air National Guard and the National Guard Bureau. Okay? Next slide. These were the strategic goals that we created, and you can see these are in priority order. So the first thing that we do, build network or partnership capacity. Okay, and that's what everybody in this room does on a regular basis. The key here is how to communicate effective and efficient strategies or strategic communication plans, right, that enable us to inform our communities and service members, families, etc., on what's available. What are we doing for them? And then align the resources that contribute to the federal and state mission accomplishment. So these are the strategic goals. The next piece of this is going to be, and you guys in your discussions this week will help flush, I believe, some of this out for the program managers, are the actual action plans and the metrics that are associated with measuring well-being programs, which can be so hard to do. When we went through this last fall, the OSD resource management decision or resource management review process, one of the programs, as I already mentioned, Strong Bonds, was not cut, and the reason why it wasn't cut was because there had been a 5-year longitudinal study on a cohort group of those who attended Strong Bonds and those who did not, and the divorce rates associated with those who attended Strong Bonds was much lower than those who didn't attend. So where I think that we need your help, and part of the discussion that we need to have this week, is all those relationships that you all have with those universities and organizations out there that have the ability to do studies. We should target, based on, again, Dr. Bowen's capacity building briefing was spot on, those 2 or 3 things that we need to focus on and measure. We need to make sure that we're measuring the right thing, that it's outcome based, that it's results based, and that, again, we're measuring the right things. But some of our programs truly have not been studied to the degree in which that we need them to be to ensure that we're providing the right programs. So that's where we could use your help. So I hope, again, during your breakout sessions this week that that's part of the discussion.